All right, welcome back. So we were just talking about these lethal drugs that are popping up in and around Kansas City. You know, things being tainted at some of these cannabis shops where there was mercury and lead found. Also, this even newer, more lethal version, nitazene, that's been popping up at some of these schools in Missouri, at least some that we know of, and also fentanyl as well, showing up in Barbie's packaging here in Kansas City area. Well, someone who understands our concerns and is actually working to do something about it is our next guest, and that is Laura Woody, who is a Missouri board member of Lost Voices of Fentanyl. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. I know this is deeply personal for you. Can you share a little bit about your son and what led you to get involved with Lost Voices of Fentanyl?
Well, thank you for having me, Miranda. I really appreciate you giving us a voice as we give our lost loved ones a voice. My son, Jimmy Woody, was poisoned with fentanyl on Halloween 2021. I didn't know anything about it. Like many parents, had never heard of it until my son died, and I just started searching for information about it. Found Lost Voices of Fentanyl on Facebook, started reading and learning, and suddenly I realized, oh my goodness, my son didn't addiction himself to death. This is a national crisis, and I don't even remember how many members we had at that time. We have 48,000 members now. And realizing that, you know, over 100,000 Americans are being slaughtered on U.S. soil every year, and nobody was talking about it at that time. Thank God people finally are now, but I just got really involved and became a board member, and I've been working with Lost Voices of Fentanyl, focusing on the national crisis, really, for the past 3 years. Finally, our federal government is doing something, and now I'm kind of coming back to work at the state and local levels and encouraging state and local governments to follow the Trump administration's lead and become equally aggressive in stopping supply and suppliers of these deadly drugs.
Well, you know, I commend you so much that you've turned an unimaginable loss into action. And like you said, you've been working with lawmakers. You're a Kansas City native. You've been working with lawmakers here in Missouri. Tell us about that bill that you helped shape with Representative Ann Kelly.
Yes, Missouri House Bill 3113. We worked together on this. It was a neat story. I was trying to raise awareness down here in Cedar County, Missouri, and I was had an awareness booth at a 3-day festival, the Black Walnut Festival, kind of like Santa Calgon Days up there. And she and Representative Bradley Pollitt came by my booth, and we started talking, and I was just telling them the struggles we're facing. For one, getting drug dealers convicted, and charged and held accountable, because it's drug-induced homicide. They're committing a crime, and these deaths aren't even being investigated. And my colleague and I shared some of our frustrations with that, and trying to advocate for justice for these drug death victims, and also about getting awareness into the schools. This is so critical. You know.
Yeah, we were just talking about Missouri schools that, 26, 37. I mean, I couldn't even, we'd be here for quite a while if I listed all these schools, but these were schools that voluntarily let the water be tested. So there's more. Guaranteed there's more. So talk about
and
that.
It's ironic that the same schools that won't let us come in and warn kids about these dangers didn't participate in this testing. And there's so much denial. There's a not my child mentality. Nope. We don't want to know about the dangers. We're just going to stick our head in the sand and pretend that's happening other places to other people's kids. It won't happen to me. It won't happen here.
Yeah.
It's not in our town, but it is. It found my son in small town USA. Mm-hmm. And I can't bring him back. I'm fighting to save the living. And I tried to get into the schools here. They said, oh, no, we'd have to have a consent form signed by every parent of every student in the district. They just didn't want to let me in. So I've gone over their heads. I've gone to the state level, and
Good for you.
we're gonna do what Texas did, and now Oklahoma has done it, and we're just gonna have to knock it out one state at a time because there's some things that have to be addressed at that level.
Yeah,
and hopefully we can create. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to talk about two things for people that are, may not know much about fentanyl. I think there's also this misconception out there that everybody willingly got hooked on fentanyl or drugs like that. And, I learned thanks to your organization, when I hosted a special with you guys, that's not always the case. People get poisoned, just like in the case of this mother helping her, child unwrap this Barbie. Thankfully, nothing happened, but there were traces of fentanyl in that package. There was a fentanyl, found at some of these cannabis shops, but you don't know what's in there. So I think sometimes people are like, oh, that's druggies, and that's not happening to other people. And that's not the case. It's one of the leading causes of death in people between the ages of 18 to 49. So I know that you're trying to take credible action. Like you said, you're just one door closes, you'll find another, and you're doing that. You've also been working with Mark Alford here. So tell us about that and what specifically you want to see happen when you say talking about schools and about education. You also have talked to me about Narcan. So tell our listeners about that.
Well, okay. Mark Alford was holding fentanyl forums in every district around Missouri, co-hosting them with other U.S. congressmen. I attended the second one he had, and then I believe it was the next one he asked me to be a guest speaker at. And I've attended all of them, and I work with other parents and advocates around the state. There are several different groups, and I would invite them to also have a resource table there. We try to get together and support one another's projects, and coordinating that and working with his staff. And I stay in constant contact with his staff. We all got together at Lincoln Days, and when he came down to tour our hospital, we had lunch. And they've been just tremendously supportive, helping me make connections, at the state level and whatnot.
But do you want to see Narcan? Because there's been controversy. We just aired that report. I believe it was KBC 9 News talking about, those Missouri schools that tested positive for not fentanyl, but an even more lethal drug, nitazene. And, they've been talking about this idea of Narcan being in schools. But you said you've received some pushback from people about this.
Oh, yes. There exists a myth, at least like in rural communities where I live. My town has a population of 3,000. And there's just a myth and a misunderstanding that Narcan is somehow dangerous. Oh, we can't have that around children. Literally, someone said to me, oh, we're afraid 11-year-olds might get a hold of it. So I proceeded to tell them about the 10-year-old and the 14-year-old siblings in Maryland that were found by their 12-year-old sibling. There was an 11-year-old recently who took 1,500 fentanyl pills to school. And, explaining that, well, yes, we want 11-year-olds to get a hold of Narcan. And also that I have 300 boxes right now. I could sit down
and explain to people that are not familiar, real quick to interject. Can you explain to people, who are listening right now, who, maybe just hearing this for the first time, they have no idea about Narcan, or, maybe like some of the people that you're running into that don't know what it is and they're scared of it. Can you explain how this works?
Sure. Okay, Narcan is an opioid blocker. The opioid receptors in the brain that the opioid attaches to, Narcan is an opioid blocker. It blocks that opioid from reaching that receptor. So if someone is not breathing and you squirt Narcan up their nose, they will start breathing again. They will come back. I mean, it literally brings them back to life. It has no other function, no side effects whatsoever. Like I said, I could sit here and squirt all 300 doses up my nose, and all I'm going to have is a wet nose. That's all it does. But this fear and misunderstanding of it has people afraid of having Narcan. And Mark Alford says it best. Just because I have a fire extinguisher in my home doesn't mean I'm an arsonist.
Good point. Yeah.
You know, when we offer it to people, when we're handing it out and they say, no, I don't know any druggies. Take it anyway. Take it anyway, because here's a shocking statistic for you. In 2023, 43 children under the age of 5 died from fentanyl poisoning in the state of Missouri.
Wow. But that was just in Missouri?
Yes.
Say that number again, because I want people who are listening right now, maybe in their car. I think this is going to hit them hard.
In 2023, 43 children under the age of 5 died from fentanyl poisoning in the state of Missouri.
It's just
they were not drug addicts.
Yeah.
And, you know, have Narcan anyway. I gave a presentation at the Head Start Daycare Center, and I told parents, even if you yourself don't use illicit substances, that doesn't mean your child won't come in contact with it. You know, we even put up the children's safety posters in the elementary schools telling them, if you see a baggie, don't pick it up, don't touch it, get an adult, and don't use hand sanitizer. And I've had moms come up to me and say, thank you for that information. I didn't know that. And I'm just trying to keep people safe.
I know.
And our school in our little town, we've got the elementary, middle, and high school all together on one block. They have Narcan in the nurse's office, which is in the middle school building. But if someone is unresponsive at the opposite end of the high school, like in the band room, that's a whole building and a half away from the nurse's office.
Yeah, it is.
There's no reason for it not to be in every AED box. And that's what is in HB 3113, where it requiring that it be in every public building.
So is this the bill that you helped shape with Representative Ann Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for people that are listening right now that hear you and they want this to happen, they want this to move forward, especially, like I said, after hearing those reports about what happened at the Missouri schools, you know, where can they go to read more about this bill, support your cause, and just learn more about Lost Voices of Fentanyl?
Okay, for the current bill, HB 3113, you can go to house.mo.gov and search for that bill number. Representative Ann Kelly has been wonderful in working with me on this. I mean, literally, I messaged her about something, and she called me, and at the end of our call, she said, email me a list of legislation needed. And I did, and we worked together with her drafters, and we got this bill written up. And we're waiting for it to be brought to the House floor again. It's been through committee. We've been waiting about 3 weeks for that to happen, actually. So we're trying to find out why that's not moving. And it's a bipartisan bill.
Yeah.
It's really a bipartisan bill. Mandatory Narcan in all public buildings. Mandatory fentanyl awareness in all schools. A couple other things is making it mandatory that all drug tests be investigated.
Yeah. Well, you know, it makes sense to me, common sense, but, you know, there's strength in numbers. And so hopefully some of the people that are listening right now, they hear you. They hear your voice. Your voice is not lost.
I hope so.
Lost Voices of Fentanyl. If you get a chance,
yes.
check out the website.
The website is lvof.org. Or you can go, we're on Facebook. We have a huge Facebook discussion group. Just search Lost Voices of Fentanyl.
Yeah. And you do have a voice. And I hear you, Laura Woody. Again, I really commend you for your tenacity.
Thank
know,
you.
that most of us can't even fathom what it would be like to lose a child, let alone to, again, you know, I don't want to sound cliche, but it's true, taking your pain and giving it purpose and saving other lives. This is a huge issue. And we need all the help we can get. So thank you for using your voice. I really do appreciate it, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity and turning my.
Oh, I lost. Oops. I think we accidentally lost you, Laura. So sorry about that. It was a technical detail, but we'll definitely have Laura back here at 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. So you heard what Laura had to say. Again, I talked about the headlines. These are just what we know of right now. How concerned are you? And one of the things I didn't get to ask Laura, and I wanted to ask her, maybe all of us should have Narcan in our house. You know, thinking about that. I mean, I have a fire extinguisher in my house. Maybe I should have Narcan in my house because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, what do you think about this idea? You know, first off, what's your reaction to what you've seen?